The week of Weird is almost here, and I have yet to do my week of Weird TBR video. Actually, that's not true because I did do it, but then I changed 2 of the books that were on it. So we are finally at the list of books that I will read. So let's get into it. So here we are. All right, so this is my TBR for the week of Weird, which is happening this weekend. Today is March the 8th, I believe, and the week of Weird starts on the 12th, so we're only like 3 or 4 days away by the time you guys see this. And I finally settled on a list that I'm fairly confident I'm going to read. One big reason for that is because I've already started. Yes, I am starting early because although next week is it's not necessarily my busy week of work within the month-long rotation that I follow, but I probably won't be able to finish off the entire TBR, so I've started early just so I can give myself a better chance at completing my TBR. I have 4 things I'm going to read, and I know there's 5 prompts, but I've bundled one of them up. So let's get into my TBR here. First prompt is Old Weird. Read a weird story or book written in the 1910s to the 1970s, and I went with The Willows by Algernon Blackwood. This is an old favorite of mine. I don't know when it was published. It may have been published before 1910. I could be wrong on that, but it's an old favorite of mine. It's about 2 good friends. I believe they're friends. It's been a while since I've read it, so it's also a reread for me. Like I said, it's a favorite, but it's about 2 friends who go on a trip, a kayaking trip, or at least a boating trip down a river. I don't know if they're in a kayak or a canoe. Anyways, they're going down the river, and they reach this little island where the river separates, and they decide to take camp for the night on that little island, and it turns out to be a terrible mistake because things get really weird. And so that's it. That's my number 1. I'm going to read that. The Willows by Algernon Blackwood. Number 2, New Weird. Read a story or a book written in 1980s to the present. Now, this one, I'm not too sure if it's actually considered weird fiction, but from the reviews and people I've seen talking about this book, they say it does get kind of weird. So I really want to read it because some people whose opinions I respect have been praising this book to death, and that is The Jackal by Aaron E. Adams. I have no idea what it's about. Actually, I do know what it's about. I know it's about children who go missing in a forest, but I'm going to read you the synopsis just to get it accurate, because every time I go to do a synopsis after reading the actual synopsis, when I go to do it off the top of my head, I always screw something up. So let me read you the synopsis. It's watching. Liz Rosher is coming home, reluctantly. As a black woman, Liz doesn't exactly have fond memories of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a predominantly white town. But her best friend is getting married, so she braces herself for a weekend of awkward and passive-aggressive reunions. Liz has grown, though she can handle whatever awaits her. But on the day of the wedding, somewhere between dancing and desert, the bride's daughter, Caroline, goes missing. Oh, between dancing and dessert, the bride's daughter, Caroline, goes missing. And the only thing left behind is a piece of white fabric covered in blood. It's taking. As a frantic search begins, with the police combing the deserts for Caroline, Liz is the only one who notices a pattern. A summer night, a missing girl, a party in the woods. She's seen this before. Keisha Woodson, the only other black girl in school, walked into the woods with a mysterious man and was later found with her chest cavity ripped open and her heart missing. Liz shudders at the thought that it could have been her, and now, with Caroline missing, it can't be a coincidence. As Liz starts to dig through the town's history, she uncovers a horrifying secret about the place she once called home. Children have been going missing in these woods for years, all of them black, all of them girls. It's your turn. With the devil in the forest creeping closer, Liz knows what she must do: find Caroline, or be entirely consumed by the darkness. Now, honestly, that sounds like a non-weird story, but I've heard that it goes in some very weird territory, and so I'm looking forward to getting into it. And also, my apologies for butchering that synopsis. I've been kind of under the weather for the last week and a half. Anyways, so number 3 here. Out of This World, read a weird story with science fiction elements. And I was recommended this book about 3 years ago, I think, maybe even longer than that, by Rachel from Shades of Orange. She read this book and thought that I would like it, and I was like, you know what, I've been wanting to read this book, and now that you've recommended it, I want to read it even more. But did I read it? No, I didn't read it. But I'm going to read it now, and it's Under the Skin by Michael Faber. Here is the synopsis for this one. Hopefully I don't butcher it as badly as I did the last one. Iserly picks up hitchhikers with big muscles. She herself is tiny, like a kid peering up over the steering wheel. She has a remarkable face and wears the thickest corrective lenses anyone has ever seen. Her posture is suggestive of some spinal problem. Her breasts are perfect, perhaps implants. She is strangely erotic, yet somehow grotesque, vulnerable, yet threatening. Her hitchhikers are a mixed bunch of men, trailer trash and traveling postcards, thugs and philosophers. But Iserly is only interested in whether they have families and whether they have muscles. Then it's only a question of how long she can endure her pain, physical and spiritual, and their conversation. So a lot of people may have seen the movie. I've seen at least parts of the movie that was adapted by this book. And I remember thinking it was quite odd, and I've known a lot of people who read weird fiction to call this weird fiction, and so it sounds really weird, and I'm on board. Prompt number 4. The Dark. Read a weird fiction story or book with supernatural or horror elements. And I'm going with Black Helicopters by Caitlin R. Kiernan. Here's the synopsis for the I should mention that this is book 2, and I've read book 1. This is Black Helicopters is book 2 of the Tinfoil Dossier. And the first book, which I read a few years ago, is called, let's see here, Agents of Dreamland. And it was really good, so I wanted to continue this series, but I'm not always the greatest with series. But we're gonna get through it now. Actually, this is one of the books I've started, along with the Jackal, actually. So here is the synopsis for Black Helicopters. Just as the signalmen stood and faced the void in Agents of Dreamland, so it falls to Telema, a chess piece in her agency's world-spanning game, to unravel what has become tangled and unknowable. Something strange is happening on the shores of New England. Something stranger still is happening to the world itself. Chaos unleashed, rational explanation slipped loose from the moorings of the known. Two rival agencies stare across the void at one another. Two sisters, the deadly, sickened products of experiments going back decades, desperately evade their hunters. An invisible war rages at the fringes of our world with unimaginable consequences and Lovecraftian horrors that ripple centuries into the future. Now, from my understanding, and I don't know this for certain, but I think you could read this book out of sequence with the other 2 books, because this is a trilogy. At least it's a trilogy so far. I don't know if Caitlin R. Kiernan is planning on continuing the series or not, but I am. I'm planning on continuing it until at least now. Anyways, prompt number 5, Flora and Fauna. This is read a weird story or book featuring natures, and this is where I'm bundling up My options, I am going again with The Willows by Algernon Blackwood because it takes place on an outdoors trip, and the weird stuff that happens, if my memory serves me correctly, involves a lot of the flora and fauna upon that island in which the two main characters decide to camp for the night. So there it is, my TBR. Like I said, this one is locked in as far as I can tell because I've already started reading it. The two books that I've started are the only ones that could change because they are the ones who changed before. But the other two that I haven't started yet have stayed on this list since I started making this list. So here we go. We have started, or at least we're going to be starting very shortly. Thank you everyone who's participating. I'm happy that we've had a pretty good turnout for the week of Weird. There's one thing, a lot of people, from my experiences anyway, don't seem to enjoy weird fiction because mostly because of the ambiguous endings that you often find in weird fiction. Personally, I love ambiguity in fiction. I especially, and most especially, if it sparks my own imagination to wonder. And I mean, that sense of wonder that you can get in weird fiction, I'm kind of addicted to that. If you can spark that, then I'm on board, and I will have found myself a new favorite book and perhaps even a new favorite author. So I hope everyone who participates has a lot of fun, and I hope you all get a little weird with it. All right, thanks everyone for watching. Keep being safe and keep being productive. I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.